Welcome to how you can help get Gran Turismo 7 into the Paralympics. First and foremost, I decided to do this video after the initial Olympic event ended because as much as I would like it to be like how the Olympics and Paralympics work in the past, when the Paralympics start a few weeks after the Olympics, realistically, I don't think that would be possible, even when it was announced that the Olympic event would be for 2023. As much as I really hoped that the Paralympic event would start, say, late May, early June, I didn't really ever expect it to happen, nor was I going to force an issue on it either. Because realistically, nothing's been confirmed or denied if there will be a Paralympic event, and for if anything ever does get confirmed, people who would want to enter would then have to submit some type of form with their disability, and that in and of itself would take a while, so I'll be patient about this. This is definitely something that I want, but it's something I will be patient about so that it can be done in the best way possible. Realistically, before the Olympic event for this year was announced, and even when it was announced, I still figured the Paralympic stuff would be for 2024. That's why I made the video in 2022, titled 2023, because I was going to make the video in 2023, planning out how I would go about getting Gran Turismo into the 2024 Paralympics. I know that sounds confusing, but this is even more confusing. The game that I'm trying to get into the Paralympics is Gran Turismo 7, and at the current point, this is what's going on with Gran Turismo 7. Yeah, folks. Cannot install the update file. The new update that just came out, that all it did was fix rankings for the Toyota Cup, in which shouldn't have been broken in the first place, cannot be installed. There's no error code or anything, but just through guessing, I actually figured out that yes, there is an error code. So then I go to find the error code and wait for it, folks. Wait for it, folks. They're saying that indeed there is an error code. And then I go to look for said error code, and here is the piece de resistance or whatever. Sorry, we weren't able to find the error code. The game works for quite literally no known reason whatsoever. And this is the game that I'm trying to get into the Paralympics. At this point, folks, library is getting unfairly sued by the government to the point of it's probably impossible to make it an actual viable monetary career out of. Through no fault of my own, through no fault of the company's own, but yet I stay around. Even in high school, there was a point to where I went to one of the absolute poorest school districts in the entire nation. Not an over-exaggeration. It truly really was at the point in which I was there. And I still tried to run for senior class president under trying to get esports into school. Barely anyone knew what that was, so I didn't win. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is far from the first time I've had just something completely out of my control screw me. I had no control over the government screwing over a library. I had no control over the school board or whoever gives money out screwing over the school district that I was in to not have it even remotely enough money for esports. I don't have control over having cerebral palsy. I was born with that at birth. I've been screwed over since birth. I'm used to it at this point, and I'm going to deal with it at this point because I have for my entire life. This is truly just a trust me on this one because I can't physically sew it. I was initially going to make this video with actually footage in the background synced to my voice to where actually the footage would be in like 720p. It can't be better than that because it's saved through the PlayStation share. But still, nonetheless, it would look a lot better than this and actually be footage showing what I'm going to say later in examples and how I think the Paralympics go and the way that would be the best format for those competing in it. But no, because those replays were on GT7, and I cannot access GT7, there's no way to do so. I guess in hindsight, I should have already gone ahead and done the replays from GT7, saved it in the share capture, and put it there, but I wanted to wait and do so until later, because the video would have already been made, and I would have known how long I would have needed to make one replay or to make multiple replays equal out to it instead of having the footage to begin with and maybe not having enough or whatever, and then I just have to go back in and get more later or whatever. But nope, can't do that whatsoever now. Well, you know what, folks? I've dealt with setbacks for going on, if depending on how you want to word it, over a quarter of a century. I can deal with this. So let's get into the actual video itself. At this point, I feel like I've proven enough that I will fight through anything and everything until I'm physically and mentally incapable of doing so. I've dealt with much worse. I've dealt with much stupider. I've dealt with stuff way more out of my control than this. So at this point, y'all basically heard enough about me. I'm not going to say definitively if I will or won't make other videos more specifically tied to me and personal circumstances and stuff. I'll just play it by ear of how things go. But this is just to get Gran Turismo into the Paralympics in general. Now, to begin with, there's not really all that good a communication with the Paralympics itself. It seems to be country by country. You have to sort of kind of do your own research to find out for your country. What I will do is link in the description is how to contact the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and then maybe you could go from there. Maybe it might just be as simple as there's the US at the end of it, and then you change where it says US to your own country code at the end of it. It's hard to say because many countries speak many different languages and stuff like that, and I don't know. I don't really have much knowledge of other countries, so I'll just leave it as it's not actually the easiest thing to go about doing it. But I feel like if you do want to go the route of contacting the Olympics and Paralympics directly, then the best way to do so is have an explanation of why this should already work. The most obvious explanation is, well, Gran Turismo was already in the Olympics twice at this point. The first time around was already completely finished. Like, the champion was already crowned, and that was an overall great experience. There was the pageantry, there was the great commentary, the great racing, all that combined made for an incredible event. This time around, it should in theory be even better, because the first time around was the virtual series. This time around, they'll be physically at Singapore for the finals. So overall, that should even make for a better experience than the first time around, and the first time around was pretty caught picking good anyway. As much as I rightfully bash Gran Turismo, and it deserves everything I say about it, there's no denying that the best of the best drivers are truly the best of the best, and the commentators are the best of the best for the series. As well, all ends up equaling out to, like I've said, since really GT Sport closed beta, it's the players, it's the drivers to actually drive the game itself. But tis and all that, but it is a truism right yonder. So how does that relate with the Paralympics? Because obviously just by physical ability, it's not going to be the absolute best of the best. Well, the way that I see it is I feel like, again, like I've said in other videos, since I really started my channel, I put my own personal feats, whether back in the day it was Drive Club or early on with GT6 Drift Trials, or even to now getting to close to when the events start up in the overall worldwide leaderboards, so people can have a benchmark of how to start the event as early as possible. To me, that just seems like a win-win. I get the video out arguably earlier than anyone else on the internet. That's sort of my goal. Yeah, people will definitely make a more polished looking video a few hours after mine comes out, but mine, if it's the first on there, then people want to get in an early as quick a start to it, can then see a benchmark and how to do the events. But another reason I do that too is that I feel like while in 99 out of 100 circumstances cannot win or even be all that close to the best of the best in the world. Well, for one, I've sold it on an extremely rare circumstance I can actually go toe-to-toe with them. And two, is I'm just one example. I feel like I've documented it enough to where if I can do it, I'm sure there's other people with disabilities that can be on as good of, if not better, of a competitive scene than me. I don't exactly know how to word that, but y'all get what I'm saying. I don't know off the top of my head anyone that would qualify for the Paralympics that is faster than me, but I also don't know that many off the top of my head who qualify at all. So it's one of those things to where it's very much interesting to find out. I feel like more than anything, that should be a reason for it to happen. Is it would just be quite interesting. Let's face it, for the Olympics, we kind of already knew who was going to end up on top. It was the same players who win the Gran Turismo World Tour events who were on top for the Olympic event. Who knows who get it for the Paralympics? That would be extremely interesting, honestly. Like I've said before, is whether I end up winning the gold medal, even if I don't make the event, if I can actually help get it going, it's still very much a win for me. Of course, I'd rather win the gold medal, and if there were to ever be official Paralympic events, I would do it non-stop to the point of I couldn't physically do it anymore. So there's that, and I promise that if it ever were to happen, I will put my absolute best and non-stop effort into it. I really would. But that's actually part of kind of the next point. The next point should be, how would it go if it's in the Paralympics? And like I said, all this leads to what you can do to help do it. Like for what you end up doing in your own style, I'll get to that in a bit. For doing it, this is probably something to mention as well, is what way do you think would be best fit for if it does happen? I think the best way for it to go around, instead of like how the Olympics has done it recently with having a Group 1 car around one track, if it has to be one round, just from time constraints or whatever it may be, then whatever. If that has to be how it is, then so be it. But if it has to be one round, I feel like that it should be in a car that's more accessible. I mean, Paralympics and accessibility go hand in hand. I don't really think that needs explained too much. An extremely powerful Group 1 car that also costs 30 million credits if you wanted to practice before the event started. Something I found out the hard way. Yeah, that's not the most successful. Especially because with the Paralympic event, if it's announced enough in advance, again, like I said, I'm being patient about it, then those that feel like they might have a chance to compete, who just play general racing esports in general with disabilities, might want to get GT7 and then have a chance to compete for a car, so then they wouldn't want to spend real money to be able to get the car or play tons of the game to get to it either. The car in and of itself should be accessible. One, just a really powerful Group 1 car is harder to drive. I mean, I can vouch for that. I've said since I started the channel, I'm faster on average relative to the best driving slower cars and faster cars. All things considered, that probably does have to do with cerebral palsy. I mean, I don't have good reflexes. I don't have as much, like, stamina. I have to focus so extremely hard to drive the faster cars that I couldn't keep it up for as long of a time period. Make the car in and of itself more accessible. It's fairly obvious that Toyota is partnered with the Olympic event, so I'm going to assume that if there was a Paralympic event, that Toyota would be if a partner, if not the sole partner. So if it ends up being Toyota, then how about we get the GR Yaris or the newer version of the GT86? Get a car that somebody could actually buy in real life, for one. That's just good advertising for the brand. Nobody can buy a Group 1 car in real life. Two, it's a lot less expensive in the game. And then three, it's just an easier car to drive. I would say either or for that, probably depending on the track. If it's a shorter track with lower speeds, then probably go more with the GR86 because it's a lighter car, more about the handling aspect. If it's a bit of a faster track, then go with the Yaris because then it can get to more of a top speed and such. Either way, either of those cars seem like a good fit. If it is Toyota, of course, knowing me, I'd rather it be Dodge. But I mean, Actually, even all the dodges in the game, there aren't really any dodges that are super easy to drive either. I mean, the Viper drive, never driven a Viper in real life, but of how it's described, the Viper drives like it wants to kill you, and it does the game as well. And then the Charger's the Hellcat, and the Challenger's a classic muscle car. I mean, you get what I'm saying. Of course, I'd want it to be Dodge, but that's not as realistic. If it doesn't end up being through Toyota, then I feel like the car should still be pretty easily accessible. Either I would say nothing over 400 horsepower. If it is a race car, then have it be a Group 4, which are around about 400 horsepower. Generally speaking, how the balance of performance work, I don't even know if there are any over 400. So I would say Group 4 max. And then I would say real world track would frankly be the best for the Paralympic event. Because again, this would probably draw some people who are disabled that play just general racing games, would know a real world track better. So I would say lean more towards the real world track. Granted, both the Olympic events so far in 2021 and 2023, neither have been on a real racetrack that exists. Like, granted, both now Tokyo Expressway and the first Olympic event, and Deep Forest with this time around, they do have real world locations now, but they aren't actual racetracks in the real world. So for what real world track to go with, I mean, I wouldn't say anything like Nürburgring or Le Mans, whatever. I would say 4 miles or less. Like, if you want to go somewhat bigger like Spa, if you want to go somewhat smaller like Tsukuba, whatever. But I wouldn't say anything giant, especially where the car in and of itself wouldn't be as fast, what I feel like would be best. So that is how it's be done. And granted, like I've said before, GT Academy was amazing back in the day and frankly did all the stuff better than the Olympics or even the World Tour events are doing now, World Series, whatever. If they want to do it like GT Academy, especially maybe they could even tie it to the movie, wink wink, the movie that's about GT Academy. They could do multiple rounds with multiple different cars and tracks and such. If they do multiple rounds of different cars and tracks, then maybe you do have a faster car in there. But I'd still argue probably not any Group 1 cars. Group 2 at the absolute max if there's multiple rounds, but even still, I'd kind of lean more towards nothing more than Group 3. And again, if they end up having faster cars, have tracks to suit those cars better and all that. Generally speaking, I would say after multiple rounds, maybe don't go with the rally. In general, Gran Turismo 7 rally physics are kind of iffy anyway. And then, again, for those, if they come over from other racing esports games, this might not have as much experience in rally stuff, so then it'd be harder on them. So probably, if there's multiple wins, maybe don't do rally stuff. But other than that, maybe rain if there's multiple events. See, I'd say if it's rain, then have a four-wheel drive car, have something like the Yaris. Or maybe the Tundra, or something even beyond Toyota, if that's allowable, or however you want to word that. But yeah, so now into the last part of the videos, I explained what would be best for the event itself, so now, what's the best way that you can go actually helping? Again, like I said, the most straightforward route is just find your country's way to contact the Olympic and Paralympic Committee for the country. But what to actually sell them, what I've already explained, like the best ways in which to do the event. For one, I would say just do it in your own style. Whatever you know best. If you're best at making TikToks, then go with that. If you can't currently make TikToks because blah, 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 then if you're able to use a VPN, whatever it may be. If you're better about just making long-form essay-type videos, then go with that. If you're better writing stuff out, then send the actual documents. If you really want to, just ask ChatGPT and go from there. Any and everything, I would say at this point, is better than nothing. I don't really think there's any format in which you could possibly make something that would hurt the chances of it happening. Either A, they're planning on having a Paralympic event in the future, and this is all for naught because it's going to happen anyway. B, they've already talked to the Paralympics, and it's not at all planned, and this isn't going to do anything for the foreseeable future. Granted, I don't think there would ever be a point where at all they'd say no, not ever. There would never be a Paralympic event ever. I don't realistically think that would be a thing. Or C, that they just simply don't know yet, and all this does matter. So who knows? But nonetheless, I don't think there would ever be, say, like an option D of send something in and it's so repeatable that kills it. Like, I don't think that would ever happen. However, you feel like you can format something best to do so. Even if it's just a general email, like not in a fancy text format or whatever. Just even a general quick email, I would say would be better than nothing. At this point, just do what you feel the most comfortable in doing. Like I said, even if needed, use ChatGPT or whatever AI format you like. At this point, I'd say anything goes. Shoot for the moon and hope it works, and just go from there. Like I said, at this point, I've dealt with so many things outside of my control that none of this phases me anymore. I mean, I'm still trying to get supplemental security with being obviously disabled. I've described that. I've said my life story. Still jumping through hoops with that. I'm to the point in my life to where, even slightly before it, I'll get to the it in a second, but no one really wanted to hire me anyway. But my disability is not quite bad enough to where I automatically qualified for supplemental security. And then now to the it of the AI coming out with ChatGPT and stuff. I qualified it or graduated with information communication technology. That's exactly one of those things that's already at this moment starting to be replaced by AI, and within 5 years will probably be completely replaced by AI. So, yeah. You know what, folks? At this point, we might as well all shoot for the moon. I mean, the way that I see it is that you miss every shot you don't take. I very much believe in that. There's different variations, if I had to word that, for individual circumstances, but I think the general saying is you miss every shot you don't take. So, I mean, obviously in some circumstances that doesn't work out, like actual basketball or whatever, maybe where that saying came from. You don't want to shoot anything and everything. But generally speaking, I do believe that. And I feel like this is one of the examples where that works out best. Go ahead and do what you can for it if you feel like it's worth doing. I mean, even if it's not you directly, if you want to send a video, send this idea of Gran Turismo being in the Paralympics to other people that you think would be interested in, do that too. Anything and everything, I feel like, is better than nothing. Granted, again, it might already be that, yeah, they're planning on doing it later, and this is not particularly going to do anything because they already planned for it to happen, but to be honest, more than likely. Like what happened in high school when I ran for senior class president. Like what's going on with library now. Like what's going on with ChatGPT and what I graduated from college from. Like what's going on with cerebral palsy. No, things probably won't work out for the best. There's a really good chance that there won't be a Paralympic event. But any chance whatsoever is better than none. It's not zero. There's not no chance whatsoever that library could end up winning and I could make this a career. There's not no chance whatsoever that my high school at some point could actually generate enough revenue to where it could actually have esports at some point. There's not a 0% chance that Gran Turismo doesn't get into the Paralympics. I don't know exactly what the percent chance is. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it and say that Gran Turismo 7's the dandiest game out there because it deserves everything that I said about it. If not, I should be even meaner, probably. And yeah, I can't even physically play the game that I'm trying to make my career at this point, and yet I still stick to it to the point of not even just passively ignoring it and moving on. I'm still trying to get it to the most grandest thing that I could be a part of. I've done this my whole life. Instead of with cerebral palsy, just trying to ignore it and act like everything's fine and trick people or companies or whatever into hiring me, interacting with me. I'm always straightforward with it, and we're saying it out in the open. I, I'm used. I'm used to all of it. If it's beyond my control, I'd rather just be open about it and do the best I can for something to happen. The chances of something truly happening have always been very slim, but it's not zero. Any chance is better than none. You miss every shot you don't take in more circumstances than not. Again, that's not a perfect saying, but whatever. Do what you feel comfortable in doing, even if it's just a quick email, even if it's using AI to do something. If it's a longer video than this, if it's a TikTok video, whatever you feel comfortable about contacting the Olympic Paralympic Committee in your country, do so. Like I said, in general, kind of in the middle of the video, it probably is better for contacting them if you describe what ways in which to do it best. But of course, if you have your own ideas, put it in the comments here. Put it in how you contact the actual Olympic Committee, whatever it may be. And again, if maybe your country doesn't have as much of the resources and you know others that would be interested, send it to them. Even if your country does and there's others, then just send them the general idea and stuff. Anything and everything at this point I feel like would be better than nothing. At this point, like I've said, and I'll probably say it more, but again, I'm not going to say anything straightforward of what videos would come after, if it, or me specifically or whatever. It kind of just depends on how things goes. I've dealt with stuff like this for a long time, so I'm here to stay. I'm used to it. Like I said, in the This Is Still Dream video. While a lot of things haven't come true, while a lot of things barely have any chance to come true, this is still dream. This is still the best option for me to go. There's nothing that I can genuinely think of that would put me in a better circumstance than I am now. And y'all can take that as you may of how pitiful and sad that is, but I've been used to pitiful and sad my entire life. So if there's a small chance that something can be the exact opposite of pitiful, sad, wonderful, amazing, and actually maybe even genuinely have people want to follow in the footsteps of the pioneers of this, that would be amazing. The rewards far outweigh the risks, even if the risks are the vast majority of what would happen. The rewards are so incredible that it's definitely worth going for, in my opinion. And if you feel the same, then do whatever you feel comfortable in doing. Send it to others who you think may be interested. And if this does all end up working out, it's more of a yeehaw than I could ever do. I've said that to end off videos too, more of a yeehaw than I could ever do. But this is the yeehawest of all the yeehaws if it ends up working out. It really would, folks. It really would. So, more than, again, I could ever do in the yeehawest of all the yeehaws if it works out. Yeehaw!